March 15, 1945. A snow-laden pine forest, 6 miles north of the Danube. The air isn't shattered by the full-throated roar of the MG-42, nor the methodical ping-thump of the American Garand. It's something else. A sharper, faster, more mechanical crack-crack-crack. 3-round bursts, disciplined and rapid, ripping through the twilight from a German tree-line that was supposed to be silent. A young American lieutenant from the 3rd Infantry Division, belly down in the half-frozen mud, squints through his field glasses. He's seen the Panzerfaust-toting boys of the Volkssturm. He's traded fire with weary Wehrmacht grenadiers clinging to their Mausers. But this is different. The rate of fire is wrong. It's not the frantic spray of an MP-40. It's controlled, economical, deadly. And the sound, it has a strange, hollow metallic echo to it. His radio man calls in the contact. Enemy infantry, dug in, unknown automatic weapons. The report will vanish into the chaos of the collapsing front. But in that moment, in the biting cold of a Bavarian wood, a handful of GIs have just become the first Allied soldiers to face a ghost, a weapon that wasn't supposed to exist. The Sturmgewehr 45. While the world would come to know and fear its predecessor, the STG-44, as Hitler's assault rifle, this was something else entirely. This was an impossible weapon, born in the inferno of Germany's final collapse. Not a product of the vast, bombed-out armaments factories, but of a single brilliant designer, Ludwig Vorgrimler, working in a clandestine Mauser workshop for the most secretive branch of the SS, the Jagdverband. These weren't regular soldiers. They were special operations hunters, tasked with sabotage and guerrilla warfare behind Allied lines. They needed a rifle for the apocalypse. And Vorgrimler, with the Allies closing in and raw materials vanishing, performed a miracle of subtraction. He looked at the STG-44, a revolutionary gun, but complex, with over 80 parts that required precise milling and forging. And he asked a desperate question. How do we build a better weapon with less of everything? Less steel, less time, less manpower? The answer was a stroke of mechanical genius, the roller-delayed blowback system. Forget the intricate gas pistons and tubes of the American M1 or the Soviet Tokarev. Vorgrimler's system used 2 small, hardened steel rollers to briefly lock the bolt against the immense pressure of a rifle cartridge firing. For a fraction of a second, they held. Then, as pressure dropped, they retracted, allowing the bolt to cycle backwards. It was simpler, tougher, and could be made on the basic machine tools that Germany had left. The result was the STG-45M. It required 50% fewer parts. It could be assembled in half the time. It was the desperate, last-minute blueprint for a future Germany would never see. And as those Jagdverband commandos faded back into the forest that March evening, leaving only the strange echo of their rifles hanging in the air, the fate of this phantom weapon was already being written. For the rifle that just redefined infantry combat in the last days of the war was about to vanish. The echo of those 3-round bursts had barely faded when the American push resumed. By April, the secret Mauser workshop in Oberndorf was a shell, its machinery silent, its engineers scattered or captured. The STG-45M, a rifle born in the 11th hour, seemed destined for the scrap heap of history, a curious footnote in the ledgers of Allied intelligence officers. A prototype, a dead end. But in the chaos of surrender, not all ghosts are laid to rest. In a stash of technical documents, crated up for shipment to the United States under the secretive Operation Paperclip, were Vorgrimler's blueprints. They weren't stamped with fanfare. They were simply another set of schematics among thousands, a solution to a problem the victorious Allies didn't yet know they had. For the American and British ordnance officers examining the hull, the STG-44 was the prize. The STG-45, an interesting, simplified variant. It was filed away, yet the seed was sown. Cut now to Madrid, 1949. A different kind of workshop, fueled not by Nazi desperation, but by Francoist ambition. Germany's best weapons designers were now scattered commodities, their expertise for sale. And here, Ludwig Vorgrimler found new patronage. Hired by the Spanish Centro de Estudios Técnicos de Materiales Especiales, CETME, he was given a new mandate: design a modern, lightweight battle rifle for the Spanish army. Vorgrimler didn't start from scratch. He opened his old toolbox. The roller-delayed blowback system, that elegant, brutal, simple solution born of scarcity, was his foundation. But he evolved it. He refined it for a new, smaller, more efficient cartridge. The SETME Model A that emerged in the early 1950s wasn't a copy of the STG-45. It was its mature, sophisticated successor. It had the same unmistakable heartbeat, that distinct, rhythmic crack-bang-zing of the bolt carrier riding back on its rollers. And then, the story turns full circle. In the wake of the Korean War, the newly formed West German Bundeswehr needed a new standard rifle. They tested everything. The American M14, the Belgian FNFAL, and then they looked at the Spanish SETME. The German evaluators, some of them former Wehrmacht officers, must have felt a jolt of uncanny recognition. The operating principle was hauntingly familiar. It was the ghost from the Black Forest, resurrected and refined. In 1959, after fierce competition and political wrangling, the German firm Heckler & Koch, founded by former Mauser engineers, won the contract to adapt and produce the SETME rifle for Germany. They stamped it with a new, now legendary designation, the G3. The impossible rifle had come home. It was no longer a weapon of last-ditch defiance. It was the cold, reliable standard of a new army. Its iconic profile, the slim, stamped steel receiver, the distinct plastic buttstock, the crisp paddle magazine release, would become one of the most recognizable shapes of the Cold War. From the jungles of Africa to the mountains of Afghanistan, the G3's legacy, built on Vordermüller's late-war desperation, would be forged in 100 different conflicts. But how did a design meant to save the Third Reich become the free world's weapon? The journey hinges on a single, shadowy figure who carried a secret in his mind across the Pyrenees. The man carrying the ghost in his mind was not a spymaster or a general. He was an engineer with a family to feed and a singular talent. Ludwig Vordermüller's journey from the collapsing Reich to the heart of Franco's Spain is a thread pulled taut by necessity and quiet ambition. Picture him in late 1945 in a cramped Allied interrogation room. Not a prisoner of war, but a detainee of interest. The men across the table aren't asking about troop movements. They ask about metallurgy, about milling tolerances, about roller locking mechanisms. They have his blueprints. They want the mind that made them. Vordermüller, like many of his peers, became an asset in limbo. The French military, scrambling to rebuild, saw immediate value. They contracted him to work for them at the Cartoucherie de Valence arsenal. Here, under French supervision, he continued his work, iterating, refining the very system he'd invented for the SS. The STG-45 was a German weapon, but its intellectual child, the CAR-45 prototype, was now a French project. The irony was lost on no one. But France was a way station. The real opportunity lay south. In Spain, General Franco was desperate to modernize his isolated military, to break free from reliance on outdated German surplus. The director of Spain's new arms development program, Colonel José María Jiménez de la Puente, was a visionary. He knew the treasure trove of German engineering talent scattered across Europe, and he had the political will and budget to recruit them. His agents made discreet offers, a stable salary, a purpose, a fresh start. For Vordermüller, the choice was clear. By 1948, he and his family had crossed into Spain. He was given a laboratory and a team at the newly established SETME. His mandate was both simple and monumental: create the next generation of infantry rifle. He did not merely recreate his STG-45. That was a weapon of its time, chambered for the full-power 7.92mm Kurz round. The future, Vordermüller and his team realized, was intermediate. He pioneered a new, even lighter 7.92mm SETME cartridge, pushing the boundaries of ballistics. He refined the roller delay system to be more forgiving, more reliable, with different ammunition qualities. The prototype that emerged, the SETME Modello 1, was lighter, handier, and more advanced than anything he'd sketched in Oberndorf. But a specter haunted the project: politics and NATO standardization. To be viable, the rifle needed to chamber the new American-designed 7.62 by 51mm NATO round, a more powerful cartridge that threatened to overwhelm the delicate balance of his delayed blowback system. Skeptics said it was impossible, that the rollers would fail, the receiver would warp, the gun would violently tear itself apart. Vorgrimler and his team worked under immense pressure. The sound of their test range was a symphony of stress. The sharp report of the rifle, followed by the anxious silence as engineers rushed to inspect the bolt, the locking piece, the chamber. Each successful burst fire was a victory. Each ruptured cartridge case, a setback. Back in Germany, the newly formed Bundeswehr was running its own high-stakes trials. The FNFEL, the Swiss SIG, the American M14, all were gas-operated, all were favorites. The SETME was the dark horse, the outsider. But when German evaluators finally got their hands on it, the data was undeniable. It was simpler to manufacture. It was more reliable in mud and dust. It was tougher. Heckler & Koch, the little-known firm founded by former Mauser men Edmund Heckler, Theodore Koch, and Alex Seidel, saw their destiny. They licensed the SETME design. They German engineered it for mass production. They gave it the heft to handle the NATO round, creating the final, legendary G3. The Ghost was now a global icon. But its final triumph wasn't on a drawing board or a test range. It was in the frozen earth of a forest, where the weapon's true, brutal legacy would be written, not by designers, but by soldiers. November 4th, 1965. The Ia Drang Valley, Vietnam. The air is a solid wall of humidity and noise. For men of the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry, the distinct crack-bang of the AK-47 has become the soundtrack of terror. It's the sound of the unseen enemy, of ambush, of a brutal, close quarters where they weren't fully prepared to fight. But listen closely. Mixed into the din, from another part of the swirling, bloody LZ, is a different sound. A heavier, sharper, more authoritative boom boom boom. It's not the chatter of an AK. It's the powerful, deliberate hammer of a battle rifle. And it's not coming from American M14s. It's the report of the G3, in the hands of an advisor from the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. The ghost of the Black Forest, born in the collapse of one empire, is now fighting in the jungles of a failing colony of another. The circle is complete, and violently so. This is the ultimate fate of Vorgrimler's impossible rifle. It escaped the scrap heap of 1945 to become one of the most prolific firearms of the 20th century. Adopted by over 50 countries, the G3 and its SETME predecessor became the metallic backbone of Cold War frontiers. It was the rifle of the Portuguese in Angola, the Iranians in the Shat al-Arab, the Pakistanis in Kashmir. Its iconic silhouette marked front lines from Northern Ireland to the Falklands. Its brilliance was its brutal simplicity. The roller-delayed blowback system had fewer parts to fail. It could be manufactured on older, less precise machinery, allowing countries from Greece to Mexico to produce it under license, building their own industrial base along with their arsenals. It was the democratized assault rifle, a tool of both national defense and political control. Yet, soldiers who carried it developed a relationship of fierce ambivalence. They praised its catastrophic stopping power. A single 7.62mm NATO round could change the course of a firefight. But they cursed its weight, its fierce recoil that punished accurate automatic fire, and the distinctive, ear-splitting ping as the empty cartridge case was ejected with such violence it could be heard over gunfire. It was a rifle that demanded respect and exacted a physical toll. And what of Ludwig Vorgrimler? He faded from view, a quiet engineer who outlived his creation's infamy. He watched from Spain as the G3 became a legend, as Heckler & Koch built an empire upon the system he drafted in desperation. He received little public acclaim. His legacy was not a statue, but a mechanical principle, a set of interacting surfaces of hardened steel that turned contained explosions into controlled, lethal function. So, the next time you see that unmistakable profile, in a news clip, a documentary, a museum case, look beyond the cold steel and black polymer. See the snow in a Bavarian forest in March 1945. Hear the desperate calculations of a brilliant mind working against a ticking clock. Feel the shock of those GIs who heard the future of warfare and didn't yet know it. The STG-45M was never meant to save the Third Reich. Its purpose was grander and darker. It was to prove that even in total defeat, an idea could be so potent, so perfectly adapted to the changing nature of conflict, that it could escape the bunker. It could cross borders on a blueprint, and redefined the battlefield for generations. The last shots of World War II had not yet echoed away when the first shots of the next war were being prepared for, in a rifle that arrived just in time to be too late, and yet was born exactly when it needed to be. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to the War Archives as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.